The S.J. Child Show is back for its 13th season. Join Sarah Bradford and the S.J. Child Show team as they explore the world of autism and share stories of hope and inspiration. This season, we're excited to bring you more autism summits featuring experts and advocates from around the world. Go to sjchilds.org.
In the heart of the city, she's shining bright.
Welcome back. Hello. It's so nice to be here. It's a lovely day this morning. I'm not sure what kind of a day it will be when this is released, but I hope you're having a lovely day anyways. Go get some vitamin D and some sunshine on your face if you need a boost of energy. That is always a good, helpful tip. So it's great to be here this morning or this afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening. Be here today with my guest, Todd. I'm going to let you pronounce your last name so I don't do it any disservice. But it's so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's Todd Hagopian.
Great. Hagopian. I can handle that. I can handle that. And where's that from? That's an interesting last name.
Yeah, there's not many of us around anymore. It's Armenian. So during the Ottoman Empire, a lot of them were extinguished, and a handful of them made it over to the U.S. My grandpa actually came over here, turned right back around, fought the Ottomans in World War I, and our family's been here. But there's kind of pockets of Armenians in Michigan and California.
Wow!
And if you go to the other states, there's not really that many of us around.
Oh, that's incredible! And where are you at?
I'm actually in Ohio right now. I was born in Michigan and raised there, but I'm in Cleveland running a business out here. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I'm in Salt Lake City. So nice day today. And it's bipolar here too. I get to exactly what we might touch on. A little funny weather joke that's, if you're worried about the weather here, you just wait 5 minutes and you go outside and it'll be a whole new weather. So and I think that happens all over, and they just like to make jokes about every little city it's for. But it's so great to have you here today. And I'm excited to learn more about you and share with my guests kind of the substance, if you will, that you have gone through, and what you've, learned through that process. So let's just start at the very beginning. Of course, give us an introduction about yourself. What brought you here today? Thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So I am a turnaround business executive. So that essentially is short for getting dropped into a really terrible business situation and then fixing it and then getting dropped into the next one. And there's not a whole lot super fun about it. I always say the only fun day in a turnaround is the last day, and then you get dropped into another one. But what brings me here today is I went undiagnosed bipolar for 15 years. And had quite the journey that we can talk through. But the short version is undiagnosed bipolar. Every time I had a huge success, I would do something to sabotage it, and had this kind of up and down role for about 15 years. And I did well and moved up in business and finally got diagnosed. And when I got diagnosed, it worked. Everything worked. The medicine worked. But I turned from kind of like the Tony Stark to the Tony Stagnant. I just was not the same guy. I didn't have the competitive edge. And that was a real problem for me, because that was what my whole ego and my whole kind of reputation was built on, was this very hypomanic type of management. They didn't know that at the time, but that's essentially what it was. And so I ended up turning around 4 more businesses. But what I had to do is trick myself into managing hypomanic. So I had to come up with systems that allowed me to manage like a hypomanic while staying healthy and present in my life for my family. And by about the 4th turnaround, I was like, or the 3rd turnaround, I was like, I need to write these down, because I'd get to month 13 of the next one and be like, oh, I forgot to do this, that I did over here. And so I wrote them down and did this latest turnaround. And I was like, I think I can teach this to people, because my second in commands, my lieutenants, they all learned how to do this. And so I was like, you know what, I'm finally going to come out, let people know that I'm bipolar, and teach people the system, but also kind of normalize and or even value neurodivergence in the workplace because it's been a problem. And for 8 years, I've kind of listened to it, in those rooms when we're talking about employees and this comes up, and I listen to how people are talking about it. And it's just really interesting. It's an area of diversity that has not been taught yet. And I wrote an interesting LinkedIn article we talk about today, actually, but it has not been taught yet. And it's just so important. And I thought during this book launch, yes, there's a huge business application. I talk about that on a bunch of podcasts, but I also wanted to do a bunch of podcasts like this where we actually talk about the importance of neurodivergence in the workplace, and then also the importance of how it needs to evolve going forward and how people need to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. And let's preface by telling people Todd just recently had a neck surgery. So if you hear coughing or any kind of anything like that, we're giving him so much grace today to be able to do that. And thank you for coming and still doing this. We appreciate you. It's now in this day and age, so I want to say relatable, if you will, for so many adults having realized a misdiagnosis or missed diagnosis in general. And I think that it's fascinating because the era in which we were raised, I'm assuming we're within a decade of one another, is one of which it was get it done. Keep your keep quiet, get it done. Like you figure it out on your own. This isn't I'm going to hold your hand through this process. Like fall down and get up and figure it out. And it's like this double-edged sword of horribleness, wonderfulness, in that we really had to be on our own to figure our things out on our own. I personally am an only child. I was literally on my own figuring things out. And for others, it was just a different era of what priorities parents had in their families. And I think their role was more providing. The provider role was the most important rather than the teaching or more like intuitive parenting, if you will, positive parenting. So I think that it forced us into situations that aren't necessarily the same today. I don't see that and I mean, yes, there's probably a lot of people that grew up that still continue that cycle. But for me personally, I didn't, my kids don't have any of those same like skills.
Right.
And I see the deficit in that. And I also see the positive side in where I've built their, self-worth and their value and themselves to be a different person than I had to question my whole life.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? Tell me a little bit about that.
I think it's so interesting. I was on a youth-based podcast the other day, and what I thought was amazing was these Gen Z folks were like, over 50% of Gen Z identifies with some kind of neurodivergence. And I was like, man, I bet you that number is 5% in my generation. You know what I mean? Like people just don't do that. They don't wear it on their sleeves. They don't go and get diagnosed. They don't do anything about it when they're struggling. You know what I mean? Like we just got through it. And and there is some value to that. And that's one of the reasons this whole, HOP method came up and all this stuff. But what I think is really interesting and so important is that the folks coming into the workplace right now are wearing this on their sleeve. It's become part of their identity. They're talking about it openly, but the people hiring and promoting and whatnot are in our generation, and we don't do that. And I think there's a huge lack, and that's what I wrote that article on, is there's a huge disconnect right now in the diversity training that's going on in the workplace, and it's focused on race and gender and religion. And those things are all extremely important, but also most managers know how to deal with those three things now. We've been doing it for 20 years. We understand the right and wrong. Like, not saying there's not problems. There's plenty of problems, but most of us understand the right and the wrong of it. I would say with neurodivergence, managers don't. It actually scares them. They don't know how to deal with it. All they know is they're not allowed to talk about it. And there's a ton of meetings that I've been in where it's like, oh yeah, that guy has that one thing. And everyone just kind of nods. And then that guy doesn't get the promotion. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, and it's just one of those things where nobody even says the words because they know they're not allowed to, but they also don't know how to talk about it at all. And there's so much value that neurodivergent views bring, that it really, like, we have to evolve the way that diversity training is being done right now. And that's why I wanted to come on here, because I just think it's such an important topic right now with that whole Gen Z entering the marketplace and Gen X and older, deciding their fate. It's just, it's a divergence of itself that needs to be talked about openly right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that a quote that, I have for the SG Child show is, a little bit of knowledge turns fear into understanding. And if they come in with this information, they can help the managers, the people, to help better understand the accommodations or the support that they may need. Right. And I think that companies really need to embrace the idea that all types of learners and thinkers will bring a different subset of values and skills to their business that they won't have otherwise, 100%. That they will be missing out on if they don't participate in having that whole inclusive idea to bring to the table. And of course, there's going to be some, niches or employment that is not necessary for those types of things. And you have to have, like a doctor has to have these requirements or whatever. Like, obviously there's going to be things, but there's so many opportunities that are missed. And there's so many opportunities that can be provided, but like no one knows at this point, right? It's almost like just this fuzzy cloud hanging over. How do you particularly go into these businesses and help them shape and shift what they're doing?
Yeah, so turnaround management is a skill that I would not wish on anybody, but it is. But it is typically pretty nasty, right? You get dropped in, you have to make changes fast. If you don't turn that business around in 24 months, you're out, kind of thing. That's the situation that you typically get thrown into. So it is aggressive. You have to trust your gut. You have to set big goals. You have to get your team aligned to that big goals. If the team is not aligned, you need a new team. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of that stuff that goes on. It's kind of the nasty part of management, but you get dropped in when that's the only option. Like, you may sacrifice 10 people to save 100, kind of thing. You're trying to save a business that would otherwise everybody would be gone, and so you have to get your head around, that. So there's a lot of things that I do, that hypomania really helped me, the bipolar aspect to it helped me. So grandiose goal setting, how can I set a big goal, get everybody excited, talk about it, believe it, drive it, extreme focus. I have a couple of different systems set up that's just all about making sure that your calendar doesn't lie, right? Everything on your calendar tells you what your priorities are. So the difference is you might have 4 things that drive most of your business, but 80% of your calendar is other stuff. If you look at my calendar, it's going to be all the stuff that drives the business. It's just boom, 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 boom. Profit per minute. It's how much money can I make every minute of the day? And it sounds greedy. But the way I have it in my head, right, is I'm saving 100 jobs. Yeah. So I need to make as much money as I can every minute of the day to save these 100 jobs. You know what I mean? And that's and so people can kind of dog this type of management, but at the same time, that's what really is going through our head when we're doing it. You know what I mean? And so continuous improvement. I've got a continuous improvement kind of methodology where you do 52 small projects in 52 weeks instead of these big projects. And you design it in a way where your best guys aren't bogged down on the projects. They only are on one at a time, instead of most companies take their best people and put them on all the important stuff. And then they only have half their time to actually do their job, which is also important. You know what I mean? And so there's just a lot of these methodologies that were born out of bipolar hypomania that I then kind of bottled up and was able to put systems around it so that I can teach other people. But that's essentially, there's a lot more to it. Orthodoxy smashing, which is just like taking all the things about an industry that are true and asking, what if they aren't? Right. That's very ADHD, very, very bipolar. You know what I mean? Like, what if that wasn't true? How would we deal with it if it wasn't true? And the easiest way to make money, I always tell people, the easiest way to make money is to prove that an orthodoxy is not true in a boring business. Take a completely boring business that's been around for 50 years, smash one orthodoxy, completely change, one thing that people think about that industry, and that's who makes all the money.
Wow.
Anyway, that's the business side of it. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but it was born out of bipolar. All of it is kind of hypomanic management. And none of it's revolutionary, but if you can systematize it and teach other people how to do it, you don't have to do all 10, but you can pick 1 or 2 for your situation, and your business doesn't have to be failing either. Right. There's this huge time between growth and crisis where you're starting to head this way. And I always tell people it's so much easier to turn around a business that's still making $2 million than it is to turn around a business that's losing 5. You know what I mean? So like start early and do it. So, yeah.
Very smart. Well, and I love that you led into that, because I was going to say, okay, let's go to the other side of this spectrum and let's talk about the challenges that really brought this to the surface and made you seek out this diagnosis.
Yeah. So I was probably 18, 19, went off to college for the first time. Is when I think it started. Obviously, I wasn't talking to a therapist at that time, but that's when I essentially stopped sleeping. Right. And that's one of the keys to bipolar. So I basically stopped sleeping. I was at college. I was drinking a lot. I was having fun. I was not sleeping. It seemed all normal to me. I think what I like to say is the difference is the guy next to me who drank all night, then sleeps till 2 p.m. and I just woke up at 5. You know what I mean? So like, there was just no sleeping happening. I probably slept 2 hours a night for 15 years. You know what I mean? Like just no sleeping at all.
Wow.
And then had, the hypomanic episodes and then the bipolar depression episodes. And that all just seemed normal. It seemed like a work hard, play hard. Of course, I work 80 hours a week. I get something good and then something bad goes on in my life because I'm just working that hard. Like it just all seemed like something I had to deal with. You know what I mean? When I finally got into my 30s and I had kids, and now I'm married, I have 2 kids, I got arrested a couple of times early on and decided like, okay, drinking is bad, but I have to do it to slow down my brain. Like it's the only thing that calms me down. So I'm going to do it at night alone. That was my solution. Like I'll just drink alone at night. I'm like, great solution. Right? And so like, I mean, my wife, we're married. She has no idea how much I'm drinking. She doesn't know I'm sleeping less than 2 hours a night. All she knows is I go and work after she goes to bed, and she doesn't know how long I'm working or. And so finally it all, of course, fell apart. I almost got arrested again. I had trouble with the marriage. I was having trouble at work because I was starting to be drunk. You know what I mean? When I went in, like I as you get older, you don't handle it as well. And so suddenly I was still drunk when I went in, and it was, and I finally went and got, I was having chest pains and headache and just couldn't figure out what was going on, probably from not sleeping, you know what I mean? And, I went in and they threw the kitchen sink at it. They tested everything, they thought a stroke and this and that. And finally somebody was like, have you ever talked to a psychiatrist? And I was like, why would that make my head hurt? And almost immediately they were like, yeah, you're bipolar. Like really, really bipolar. And then I went to a second one and kept getting diagnosed. And I was finally like, okay. And then they were describing it. And I was like, man, hypomania is awesome. like, you're right. I have this. This is great. And you know how you hear something and you just want to hear the good stuff, right? So it's like, man, this is great. Like, now I know about the depression. Okay, fine. I can manage it. And then the pills that they gave me at the time were Depakote, and Depakote handles the headaches and the bipolar. So I was like, this is perfect. Just give me the headache dose. Now,
right.
now that I know I have bipolar, I can manage the bipolar. Just give me the headache dose so I am not hurting all the time, and that's what they did. And for 6 months that worked until it obviously didn't. And then I finally, was like, all right. And I talked to the doc and they're like, you need to get on the proper dose. You need to quit drinking. You need to start sleeping, or this is not going to end well for you. You have kids, you have a big job. I was global marketing director of a big company at that point in time. Like, it was all going well, but it was at some point not going to, And I finally decided to quit alcohol cold turkey and dive into the pills. And basically that's when my competitive edge went down, and I had to build this whole system back up, and it really changed my life, like, pretty dramatically. But now, 4 kids, 4 dogs, 4 cats, big job, things are going good. It's, but for 8 years I was silent about it, did it myself with my wife. My wife knew, but nobody at work knew, and just kind of worked through it. And finally I decided now is the right time to start talking about it. And because I think there's value in that neurodivergence, and I don't think it's talked about enough. And I want people to know, but I also want to teach people, how to do it. So.
Well, and who else would I be able to talk to about my 4 dogs and my 4 cats?
There you go. Yep.
Okay. Who does that? Who does that?
No.
Nobody.
Yeah, exactly.
Holy moly. That's crazy. We're going to have a big talk about this later. But yeah, that is so funny. Only 2 kids, but hey, there's 4 people in the house. That's how I get 4. So that is just so funny that you said that. I was actually diagnosed bipolar as a girl, as a teenage girl. And I now know, of course, that, and I don't know. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Who knows what I was acting like to make them think that? I now know that I have an ADHD and autism, dyslexia, depression. I have all of the diagnoses, right? And for me, it really came down to when I looked back, and this is going to be like crazy deep, and please don't listen, parents. But when I looked back at it all and recognized like all of the things that I had been through and kind of the mental position that I took, if you will, was a lot of it was born out of dishonesty. A lot of it was born out of secret keeping and like this family, like, don't look at these things. Don't talk about this. Don't look at this. And it was almost like I was never allowed to just be the human on earth that I had been born to be. I was supposed to pretend to be this other being all the time. And how does one absolutely do that? You can't. It's chaos. It's absolute chaos. It's chaos in your brain, on your body, in your heart. It's chaos for everything. When I really recognized that and like stabilized all of those things, if you will, I'm not saying that the diagnosis is, none of that went away. I think that's crazy when people say those things. However, I have learned to manage the, I've gotten over some of the ideas that held back some of the relationships that I was having by doing the work and letting those things go, letting go of some of the ideas that I had about, just, I don't know, it's not for this conversation, but I think in those things, when we have the opportunity to look back and we have all of the information we need to look at something completely, it gives us such a great perspective to see, oh, well, this was probably caused in this situation. This is how I got through that. This is how I took that to the next thing and got through that next thing. And this is where it all went wrong. Right. but for me, myself, now having this autism, ADHD, I feel and see the ADHD in me all the time.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel better to know. It's like this legitimizes the fact that I can leave a room and nothing in this room even exists anymore. And everything out there is now a task, right? Nothing I was tasking on is actually task anymore. But it also helped to understand there was a certain sensitivity, like sensory overload kind of sensitivities that I was having. And they would happen every single month. I'm going to let everyone just kind of guess what that was. And every time it was this horrible, emotional, like confusing experience with my husband where he would feel like, do you hate me? Do you like, are you disgusted by me? Like I go to touch you and you turn away and you cringe. Like it hurt his feelings. And for me, I was like, no, of course not. That's not it at all. Oh my, like my intellect and the mental part of it wasn't connected with that physical expression that I was having in any way. They had nothing to do with one another. But it wasn't until we had the real knowledge of what that was that we could say, oh, this is sensory overload. Yeah. Your body is already in its own, going through its own thing. All of this outside environmental extra stuff is too much for you.
Yep.
But without that knowledge, all it was a big old fight every single month with a bunch of feelings that got hurt by everybody. Yeah. When really it all was just this simple little thing that now can be worked around and understood and given grace to and those types of things. And so I think it's recognizing and normalizing our real living experiences and really being able to share those, like you said, wear that on your sleeve, share it with others, especially with those that you are in close relationships with.
Yep.
They need to know the most. And I'm kind of, for lack of better terms, doing this experiment with my own daughter and in her relationships and just really pressing on her and telling her, bring up everything, anything that is bothering you, everything that you love, anything you hate, everything at all times, bring it up. Because the only thing you're doing there is creating boundaries and you're letting that other person know these are my boundaries.
Yep.
And I think it's just brilliant. And I love to watch it happen.
Yeah.
So hopefully we create a whole different kind of new human coming.
Yeah. It's so great. And I love that story. And I love the fact that, that the key difference between that and work that I'd kind of like to highlight is you guys were able to have those conversations and really get deep into it and for lack of the better words, fix or repair, or at least prepare for that when it happens. You know what I mean? The difference at work is so staggering. And I had I was watching this podcast where this lady had a great conversation about coming out as queer, as she put it. And she did this huge keynote, in front of a bunch of executives and inside her company, and they all came up afterwards and just congratulated her and supported her. And, this is so great. And I contrasted that with when people come out with mental illness at work. And it's just so staggering because what I got, and I love my coworkers, I love my boss, they're all amazing. But what I got was, how can we fix this? How can we help you? And helping is great, but it was more from how do we turn this off? And what I want people to realize is that's not what we need to do at work. What we need to do at work is how can we foster this? How can we allow them to lean into their strengths and use some of these, to your point, when you walk out of a room and you can laser focus on the next thing, there are some great jobs for that, and there are some great tasks inside of bigger jobs for that. And there's a time to use that and utilize it. And that's the difference that I just, it's so staggering to me where it's like, the difference between congratulating and celebrating diversity and trying to fix diversity.
Yeah.
We don't try and fix color or gender or stuff and it's just interesting to me. And I don't know the answer yet, but I think it's a conversation we have to have because there's some great things between you and your husband now that you do differently every month, that allows you to have a totally different relationship.
Yeah.
And that's, you can call that accommodations, but it can also just be understanding, and if you understand at work your employees and how they're going to react and what tasks they might excel at and what tasks they don't excel at, that can be that's not accommodation. That's utilizing your team in a way that they can all be, exceptional. So
who wouldn't want that as a boss? I can completely agree with you. And and to be fair, I've been with this man for 21 years. It took 2 decades. I had only got diagnosed 4 years ago. So it literally took 15 years practically, like you said, of kind of going through it and going through the motions and having this reoccurring situation that never had a solution. It never had a solution. And it wasn't until all of the pieces were put together and we could see a clear picture of what was happening. But none of that came through secrecy or not showing up and talking about it. Like you just said, it all was from vulnerability and discussing it and feeling and knowing that we were safe to have those conversations. And sometimes even putting yourself out there a little when maybe somebody's not going to respond. But I mean, ultimately, and what I'm kind of trying to get across, to my kids, when you are out in the world and you have these values and these things to offer and people don't see those things, that's their inability to see them. It's not you don't lack value. They lack vision. So just remember that. And I think that is so true but I love all of this, like bringing the conversation, normalizing our living experiences. Just completely.
And my oldest child is 13 now, and he has anxiety. And we've been starting to have this conversation because one thing that I noticed with Gen Z versus Gen X is, and this is something that everyone can work on at work, and this will help the diversity conversation. But one thing I notice is it gets brought up in the wrong way and at the wrong times and for the wrong reason. So you only bring it up when you need an accommodation. You only bring it up when you're making, for a terrible word, an excuse for something that happened or a way you reacted. And what needs to be, in order to normalize it, it has to be brought up all the time in very, very general ways. You know what I mean? Where it's out there, people know about it. And then more importantly, it needs to be shown, like, when you do something that's good because of it, you need to highlight, that it was attached. It doesn't have to be because I'm, have a mental illness. It can be because this is the way my brain thinks. And in this type of situation, that is extremely valuable, and connect those things for the bosses. Because I had the same boss for 10 years. We've gone to different companies and turned them around together, and one of the things she asked me is like, what can I do, to help fix this? And I'm like, we don't need to fix anything. We fix businesses together. It all works. You know what I mean? What I need you to do is just understand when I might need to pedal on, pedal off, think about a goal I might have set that was a little too aggressive because I was hypomanic and now I'm going through bipolar depression and I have no idea how I'm going to hit that number. You know what I mean? Let's just give me a minute to kind of deconstruct it and figure out what I was thinking and how I can get back there. You know what I mean? But so for my son with anxiety, I just tell him, like, because he'll say stuff like, oh, I got a bad grade on that test. It was because I was anxious. I'm like, don't, be careful not to use it as a crutch. You are anxious. It probably did affect it, but you don't want every time you bring up your anxiety to be because of something bad. Do you know what I mean? Like it also makes you cautious and it makes you prepare and it makes you study differently. There's a lot of good things that it makes you, maybe not the anxiety, but the reaction to the anxiety makes you do things in a positive way. And you have to highlight that stuff too, so that you're not always talking about it in a negative way. And that's I don't know how to have that conversation yet. So I love this conversation we're having, because he's just getting old enough to have this, discussion. But I don't want him to be a 19-year-old where every time something goes wrong, he points at it and says, well, it's medical.
Exactly.
That doesn't help you. It doesn't help them. Like, you need to normalize this, and you need to show when it's a good thing, because it is.
Yes.
We all have good things in our wiring. Our wiring might be different, but there's a lot of good stuff, in each of these disorders. Actually, like ADHD, they think differently and they think outside the box. And OCD, they're super detail oriented, and they probably make a hell of an engineer, and all this stuff. And just there's good stuff in everything, and we really need to highlight that, or it'll never get normalized.
No, isn't that the truth? And you don't even know this about me or anything, but I have a profoundly autistic son who has a photographic memory. He speaks over 200 languages. He does math that's ridiculous.
That's amazing.
But you know what we're working on right now? Conversation skills.
Yeah, that's right.
Because guess what? He can speak a bunch of languages, but do you think he can get through a conversation about pants or showering or anything like that? No. Yeah. And it's just so fascinating. I mean, the opportunity to have a child like this is what I'll always be grateful for. It's been such a unique experience to know a human being that can have such a huge amount of academic prowess, if you will, but at the same time lack that social humanic piece that is so important in our society. And to be able to find a balance between those two, it's an interesting task I have been tasked with in my life. So hopefully I'm the right person to do it.
I know, that's such a great, and you'll rise to it. You'll rise to it. And we have a 7-year-old who has something. We've tried to diagnose it 100 times. He's officially autistic, but he doesn't talk. He has probably 20 words, and we're working with a talker now, and it's just so interesting watching him learn to communicate. And he's so smart. He's so funny. He makes jokes with the talker, and it's just like, wow, the personality is coming out, and it's really interesting. And again, I don't want to dive deep because I don't know that he's autistic. That's just the paper diagnosis right now. It could be something else, you know what I mean? But I mean, just having that challenge in your life, it makes you think differently. It makes you talk to your employees differently. Like, I am a very different manager now than I was, 7 years ago before him. And I try to take that with me and internalize it, and just understand that people are thinking differently. Everyone's got their thing. Like it doesn't need to be a mental illness. Everyone's got their thing. They might be divorced 3 times. They might be this. They might be that. Like, they've all got something that they are working through that either hurt them and helped them in different ways. And it's just important to be open to those discussions. So.
I love that, and I'm really proud of you for doing the spelling and the reading and things with him, because so many families, even families I know now that are just starting with their 30-something-year-olds, that are discovering this world of just amazing imagination and communication that has just been locked away, and not, there hasn't been a door that's been opened for it. So I think it's just so beautiful that we offer these opportunities to each person, and and hopefully, find for those that can't communicate ways for them to be able to express themselves. So I think it's a beautiful journey. That's for sure. This has been such a wonderful discussion. I've loved getting to know you more, and I really would love to stay in touch and talk about things in the future. It sounds like we really do have a lot in common, in fact. So I think that's so funny when you, like, how would we have ever met in the world, and podcasting, right?
And it's so amazing because once you start talking about this and there's just so many people that come out of the woodwork and want to have a private conversation with you, you know what I mean? And it's just amazing how many people you help, you know, even just by having these conversations, or people listening that are being helped. And it's just so important. And yeah, I love doing podcasts multiple times. I've got 3 books coming out over the next 15 months. So I'll be on the podcast circuit for a while. Yeah, it'll be great.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to do that. No, it's been such a pleasure. And before we go, let's talk about websites, the places where people can get a hold of you. Those things you came onto the podcast for it all.
No problem. The most important stuff was the stuff we were talking about.
I love it.
You can find me on toddhagopian.com. So real nice and simple. We'll put that out there. And then my book is on Amazon, so you can search for Todd Hagopian, but also it's The Unfair Advantage. So again, trying to mold it as a good thing, right? It's the unfair advantage, weaponizing the hypomanic toolbox. And it's just about taking that hypomania and turning it into something good. It is a business fiction book. So it is fiction if you like fiction, but it is pretty heavy on the business side. So, yep.
It puts a little period.
That's good. Yeah.
There we go. Perfect. Is that right?
Yep, that's good. So toddhagopian.com, and then The Unfair Advantage is the name of the book, and everything's on the website. But just come in, you know, if you have any questions, ping me. I don't sell consulting or anything like that. You know, I'm always available to answer questions, have a conversation, and get to know people.
So great to have you here today, and thanks to Podmatch for connecting us. And I really do like Alex's service he provides. He's a wonderful guy. So
great.
Glad we connected with him years ago. It's been so great, Todd. I really appreciate what you're doing, helping to, you know, sort these businesses out, and sounds like bringing them even more value when you can help them kind of interpret their relationships with their employees so much better. So thank you for that work. And thank you for bringing us the information today to, you know, help anybody that's listening that might be bipolar. If you want to reach out and have a more depth conversation with Todd, I'm sure he'll be open to doing that. So please do reach out to him or myself if you want his information. So thank you so much for your time today. This has been so great.
Really
I'm excited to hear about the more books and things coming out. So stay in touch with me so we can get you back on when those things come out.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We'll stay in touch.
In the heart of the city, she's shining bright. Oh yeah, stories of love and courage all throughout the night. Her voice resonating, an anthem for all through the trials and the trials. She answers the call, a mother and a fighter, breaking barriers in stride. With love as her guide, she'll never hide. She's changing the world for you, with a heart that's fierce and strong. Empathy's a melody, in a journey we all belong. Followers gather like stars in the night, so bright. 44,000 voices shared in the light. She stands for family, advocates for more, a movement of compassion, ways will soar. Podcast together, a symphony of support, creating life, changing rapport. She's changing the world for you, with a heart that's fierce and strong. Empathy's a melody, in a journey we all belong. Through her eyes, a vision clear, together we ride, shedding fears in every heart. She plants the seed of understanding and love we dearly need. She's changing the world